Hello, everybody, and welcome to Movie.Cast, the podcast where we talk everything film. Mike Woodard with you, along with, as usual, Costa and Amber.
Hi.
What's up, everyone?
How's it going?
That's all right.
All right. Well, I hope everybody out there is enjoying their Memorial Day weekend. You guys have any plans for cookouts on Monday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. I have video editing to do, so.
Oh, fun.
If I don't, I'm plan on starting a marathon of Game of Thrones.
Nice. There you go. Well, so over the weekend we saw Tomorrowland, the big film by Disney and Brad Bird. His his live action directorial debut?
No, he did that with Mission Impossible.
Oh, he did.
So
That's
it's
right.
his
Okay.
second.
All right. So his second. But either way, big film by Brad Bird came out this weekend. Let's kick off our review. This is our official review of it. Amber, go ahead.
All right.
Let's take it away.
I have a list here.
You have a list. Oh, boy.
I'm going to give you...
You know it gets serious when there's a list.
I'm going to give you my likes, and I'm going to give you my bad, which basically is questions.
Okay.
So then you can just go with that. So I'll give you my likes first.
Yeah,
Okay.
just remember to keep it spoiler free for the people.
Oh, right.
at home.
I'm sorry. We will have a spoiler-free review for a good portion of this podcast first. When we do get into spoiler territory, you're going to hear our good friend Mr. Wilhelm. And after you hear the dying breath of Mr. Wilhelm there, then we get into spoiler territory. So continue watching at your own risk from that point on. But anyway, thank you for reminding me, Costa.
Yes.
Amber, take
Okay,
it away.
So I have to kind of... Some of my notes might be... I have to rewrite. Anyway, so the one was the British girl, because I was going to put this in instead, but I think that might be a spoiler.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
The basic concept and message of the movie.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
George Clooney's Madhouse and the comic book store scene.
Oh, they're just the scene, the comic book
The
store
scene, yeah.
scene.
All of it was pretty good, if you know what I'm saying. It was
Right,
pretty
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Now here are my questions,
Uh-oh.
which are pretty basically the bad part of it,
Right,
because I have
yeah.
to ask questions,
Okay.
which they can't be answered.
Okay.
Bad robots in past?
Bad robots in the past? Okay, well, we'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What happened to Tomorrowland?
Oh. You know, that's a good point, too. They
Yeah.
never really do explain that.
How far into the future is Tomorrowland? And who creates robots and bad parents? Do you know where your kids are at? Because seriously, there are characters in this movie, and you go, they've been gone for a couple days, maybe years.
Well, honestly, it's really funny because I actually didn't realize that it was Tim McGraw that played
Yeah.
the father.
It took me a few minutes to realize it, but then I
But it
recognized
seems like whenever he gets cast in something, he always seems to play like a pretty awful dad of some sort. Like if you've seen like Friday Night Lights and stuff like that.
He seemed like decent until like that part where I was like,
Well, you
do,
just
do
kinda
you
lost
know where
track
your
of
children
child
are
is,
at?
yeah.
He was a pretty good dad in
for the
The Blind Side.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, that's
he,
true.
He played a pretty decent father,
Yeah.
seeing as he was the one who basically took Michael in.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. I rescind my statement.
Apologize to Mr. McGraw.
But this wouldn't be the first time he's played a parent that has questionable parenting.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
And that was it.
That was it.
Should I give
Okay.
if I like it or not?
Well,
or-
right, yeah. What did you think of it, and would you recommend it to somebody?
I wouldn't. I don't think it's worth going to the movies to see. I think it's a rental. I don't
Okay.
even know if you'd really want to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel
Yeah.
like it's like kind of like, okay, watched, I'm done.
Yeah.
I will say though that I went, like, this wasn't something that I really wanted to see. I saw like one trailer for it like a while ago and was like, okay, I don't really care still. I was a little bit more like, okay, this is a little bit more interesting, whatever, but I saw it. I don't really care. If somebody's like, if I had to pick between some other movie, I'd be like, go see the other movie, just because
Right,
it was all right.
Right. Yeah.
Better than what I
That's
thought,
fair.
but still, like, I don't think it's worth really going to the movies and paying like all the money for.
And that's fair. Yeah. Costa, let's get your opinion.
I mean, I'm kind of indifferent
Okay.
about Tomorrowland after seeing it. I mean, it's definitely imaginative, as Disney tends to be with their movies for the most part. Yeah, there
They
were
tried.
there were a number of plot holes,
Yes.
but it wasn't without its moments. I mean, we'll dig into it in the more spoilerish portions of our discussion, but the comic book store or whatever scene that was I think probably the best scene in the movie. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of walk away without much. Without I really don't have too much of an opinion on it, just because it didn't really leave much of a mark.
What would you say to somebody if they wanted to go see it?
Hope it ends up on Netflix. I mean, I
Probably will.
I imagine it would.
Netflix or Redbox or something. I don't know if it's worth the price of admission. I mean, it's not a horrible movie, but see, the movie, I'm so indifferent. I don't really have much of, like I said, much of an opinion about it. I don't hate it, but I don't like it either.
Okay.
Like, I was just thinking, because it's a Disney movie, so clearly they're trying to get, a kid's audience. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's not, a little kid.
That's actually the point I was going to
and I was going to say, I don't think if I took, my 8-year-old cousins with me, they wouldn't be able to sit through it. I think they would get bored.
Yeah.
And I think it would go over their head. I think they would like certain parts of it, but otherwise, I don't think they and it was kind of long.
It was pretty long. It was longer than it had.
Yeah,
to be.
that's another
yeah.
judgment I have. Is the story just moves very slow.
It does. I agree.
Unnecessarily slow.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. They waited to explain elements they could have explained earlier in the movie, and just getting to the main concept of the movie took forever. I'm gonna jump in with my opinion. It kind of mirrors basically
Yeah. I
shades
think
of
we all
what
feel the
both of
same
you
about
said.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I like the story and the message that the movie was trying to get across.
Which it took them an
Right,
hour and
it
50
did
minutes to
take
get to.
it did take them a while, yes, but eventually I did like it. I enjoyed the moments of humor that it had.
Yeah.
George Clooney, this wasn't one of his top performances ever, but
No.
but he still puts on his standard George Clooney act. So if you like George Clooney, you know exactly what you're getting
Man
out
is
of him.
very charming.
All right, tell me more,
He
Costa.
though did have good chemistry with everybody.
He did,
did.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
The actors had good
you
chemistry
have a high
between each
caliber
other.
actor like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, he did his job right.
I think the visuals were pleasant. They weren't great, but they
Yeah.
weren't bad either. Like how we were talking on the last episode about how Mad Max was all practical as compared to a movie like Transformers where it was all CGI. This felt like a decent mix of both. Like
Yeah.
it kind of felt like the middle ground where they didn't beat you over the head with CGI, and whatever CGI they did have, it looked pretty decent.
Yeah.
Nothing that looked like too fake or too rubbery. Maybe in some areas. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I'm saying they weren't bad. They were pleasant.
Yeah.
They were pleasant visuals. Like I said, George Clooney and also Hugh Laurie. Me being the House fan, seeing him do something outside of House. There were way too many times where I was just like, oh, I'm just picturing House now. But I still thought he did his role well. Let me put it that way.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the show of House and Hugh Laurie, and they didn't really have a whole lot of him either.
He was really in
That's
just
true.
the beginning and the end.
And really,
That's true.
he bookended the movie. But,
Yeah, basically.
which I guess was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, a little bit, because he is such a talent, you know. But again, I had the same sort of problems you guys did. The story took way too long. They started off, and this is not too spoilerish. They start off with basically like a prologue, and then they go into like the main story.
Yeah.
And I think we all agree that I thought that they could have cut out that prologue portion. And we'll explain it more,
Yeah.
but they could have cut out that prologue portion and started off where the main story kicked off, and that would have made it a little bit better, because then you would have had more mystery going into it.
Yeah.
I think, and
I agree
then
with that
that
too.
sort of sense of discovering things along with the main characters would have been better, because the way they did it, we already have an establishment of Tomorrowland before our main character does.
There
know
was
what
no
I mean?
build up of it, really.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
there was, but
Not really.
But
they
not,
they kind of
yeah.
throw you right into it,
Yeah.
and then they try
like
to build it
15
up
minutes,
again.
yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
If you need something to put, I almost dozed off a couple of times. I will admit that during the movie. Like, I found myself just kind of like.
I didn't doze off, but I was kind of just like, all right, let's move.
But it was
Yeah.
towards like in the middle of the movie when that started happening.
Right.
You know, but once you got towards the end, and then Hugh Laurie gets reintroduced into the movie and stuff, you know, I was a little more attentive.
Right.
You're trying to figure out what's
Right,
hell's
right,
going on.
exactly.
Yeah.
But like I said, there are just portions in the middle where I just kind of found my eyelids getting a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think it suffers from the problem of being like a Disney film. I
It's
mean,
definitely
Disney
like
has
a live action Disney
Right,
film.
a live
Some
action
of them
Disney
aren't
film,
really.
yes.
They,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they have a
some
stigma
good ones,
to
and
them.
then they have some.
They
bad
have a
ones.
stigma
Yeah.
to them. That's the problem. Is that Disney does not like to venture beyond like PG territory that much. Pirates of the Caribbean was a big deal because it was PG-13.
Oh, I
It was
just
like
love
their first
how
live-action
how many
PG-13.
times did you hear like George Clooney and who's the actress who was the other main character? What
Well,
was
the
her name?
the actress was I think named Britt or something.
Well,
That was her name. That's her actress name.
Right, her actress name. Right, I don't
Or,
remember
sorry,
what
her real name.
Right, yeah, I don't.
Her real name.
That's
Isn't,
what I'm saying.
but-
I don't
isn't
remember
it,
what her character name was.
Caitlin or something?
Something. Yeah, I think it started with a K.
Caitlin. I know the
Yeah.
other the British
no,
girl's name.
Casey. Casey was
Casey.
her name in the movie, but I can't remember the actress's name.
And then the other girl, the British girl, little younger girl was Helena. Or
Athena.
Athena.
Yeah.
But I just love how many times maybe between like the two of them, how they're like son of a. And they just Disney gotta keep it PG.
Right,
Gotta keep
exactly.
it PG.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's the stigma, is that they have to do like Disney wants to try to avoid death as much as possible and stuff like that, but then yet people get like obliterated into oblivions in this movie. Disintegrated.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, that to them is a more appropriate way to kill someone rather than leaving them as a bloody mess on the floor.
They just disappear in the smoke.
It's just like, mommy, what happened to that man?
Oh, he went away. He went to a
disappeared.
magical human farm.
He
I mean, if you
vaporized.
think about it, some of their classic Disney like animated movies are more like disturbing and
Yes.
violent compared to anything else. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
of like Sleeping Beauty when they kill Maleficent, or I know my favorites, The Little Mermaid and Ursula gets like jabbed in the stomach by like a shipwreck. Like
Yep.
Britt Roberts.
Britt Roberts. Okay.
Yeah, is the actress name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we all basically are in agreement that it was a decent movie, maybe not really worth your money to go see in theaters. So please keep that in your mind. But let's have Mr. Wilhelm come in, and now let's dig in a little bit more. All right, let's explain more what we didn't like about it. So I think the big thing that we kind of all agreed on is that the message of the movie was interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I got
was
what you-
interesting.
yeah.
Like I think by that point in the movie, that's where it just took forever. But that's where the movie was really banking on.
In the end, I was like, okay, I get it, and it's an interesting, and it was what they were trying to say was like, this is smart, but you're not executing it well.
Well, right. And I love that the message of the movie was basically attacking how like humans basically want the apocalypse to happen.
Well,
like
it's
I love
basi-
how
yeah,
they
I mean, it was
sort of
basically
went
like
after that
take care of
philosophy.
your planet. It was
Right.
basically what I thought it was like you could watch Wall-E and then
Yes.
watch this movie because
Yeah.
you know how Wall-E was like, we have to recycle and take care of our
But
planet
Wall-E
or we're gonna
wasn't
die.
that preachy about it, though.
Yes,
This movie
that's
was a little
true.
bit more preachy.
Yeah, and
just a slight.
yes,
just
but
tad bit.
they both have the same message.
Yeah,
in the
virtually.
end.
Yeah.
Just one had a little bit
yeah.
more well executed than the other.
Yeah.
But that's how I got. I was like, okay, so they're just basically rehashing Wall-E all over again, except instead of the robot, we have George Clooney and a humanoid android.
Right. Yeah.
Terminator girl.
Yeah, a
to
little
help
girl,
us,
little
basically. Yeah.
12-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know how else. It's just kind of frustrating because it was like, this could have been a better movie.
It could have been, absolutely.
I mean, and I think, like I said before, when we got done watching it, it wasn't just Brad Bird who, other than directed, I think he helped kind of co-write the story.
Yes, he
but
did.
Damon Lindelof helped write it, and I was like, oh, no wonder there's so many plot holes. Because the guy has good concepts in writing things, but he can't execute them well because half of the movies he writes or whatever are lost or whatever. Just like like you have too many like questions that you don't feel like.
Yeah.
Why bother putting this in here when you're not going to tell it? It's kind of shitty story writing.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, and they tried to cover that up a few times, like,
but it's
in some of the humorous lines that they wrote, like one of them was, they were really getting into the Tomorrowland part, and the main girl, Casey, she kept asking George Clooney all these questions, or Frank all these questions, and he was just like, "Can't you just shut up and be amazed?"
I
was
feel
just
like
that's actually pretty funny.
That dialogue was probably like Brad Bird, and then like all this other stuff is like Lindelof. Like I feel like you can tell like where like their two story writings were at, because it's like you get like the really good jokes and stuff like that, which you see from his past movies, like especially with The Incredibles and Iron Giant and all this stuff. You're like, okay, this is definitely him. But then you get all this other stuff that's like weird, it doesn't make sense, and like there's questions, and you're like, that's probably Lindelof.
Yeah.
And Brad Bird's like, we need to put something in here because people aren't gonna.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I just love how that like was like attacking like the sort of that audience character who is always asking all the questions.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I love how it was attacking that trope.
And
basically.
I mean, they had high points in the movie with like jokes and things like that, like at the right spot.
Yeah.
Like that you have that, but the jokes and stuff, like it's not really a kids movie then. It's more like for a more like teenagers and up type who will understand it. So
well, first of all, why did they have to like, it seemed like such a complicated process for them to get to Tomorrowland.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Why? Because a large portion of this movie is trying to get back to Tomorrowland.
Yeah. Because everybody got kicked out.
Right. Everyone gets kicked out, and we're led to believe that Frank has like the means to get to, which he knows how to get there, but it's not like immediately present like at his house when we first meet him. So then they have to take this little portal device thing that takes them to the Eiffel Tower. And the Eiffel
I didn't even get that. I didn't understand why.
I know. Why couldn't that thing just take them to Tomorrowland?
That's what I thought it was.
And
then I
that's
thought they
what I
went.
thought.
I thought they were like in Tomorrowland, but in France.
And then they end up in Paris at the Eiffel Tower, which then turns out to be like a secret, launch pad for.
Which doesn't make sense, because how did they build that into the Eiffel Tower? If it was greater minds than all that, or and all that sort of thing, but it's like the tower has to completely come apart for it to
listen.
None of it, like all that, like that was like a plot hole, because you're like, okay, I get like they're trying to collect basically they give you a pin and to bring you into Tomorrowland because they want great minds. Okay, I get that, but what are the Tesla?
Edison,
H.G. Wells,
and Eiffel.
Like they were like the founders or whatever.
Yeah, I guess at least that's how they're framing it when they were telling it.
So they built a spaceship, which when they get into the spaceship, they go into space, and when they come back down, then they go to Tomorrowland. Why? How did that happen? Did they invent
like they're going fast enough that they
that it
like
was
they rip
like
open
a running start.
Well, yeah, I got that, but how was that invented?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's just sort of
are
there.
they in Tomorrowland? Is like Edison and all that?
Right,
No,
exactly. How does Tomorrowland even exist? They never even really explain how it exists,
well,
how it
that's
was
what
made.
I thought it was the future.
How did they find a portal to it? But that's what I'm saying. But where did that first portal come from?
Exactly.
How did they make that first? Did they make the first portal? And they just jumped in and found this random space and it was like, hey, let's build the future here.
That's the plot hole.
It's
that is the big plot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost some sort of like twist on like Alice in Wonderland, like through the rabbit Wonderhand. Yeah.
Wonderhand.
Alice in Wonderland,
Whoa.
where you're kind of through the rabbit hole, so to speak. It's just. I guess like that
The
would be.
rabbit hole is the plot hole, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Through the plot hole.
Through the plot hole. Let's get more into the plot, because what we had mentioned about like the prologue, how we said like the prologue, the movie basically starts off with George Clooney's character Frank Walker as a little kid, and
he's telling his side
and
of the
he
story.
he's telling his side of the story to an audience that we don't know. We think it's we're initially led to believe that it's a video being made, but he's talking to us who are supposed to be like, so he's telling his side of the story. And he's telling about how he was a kid, and he had the Athena gave him the pin, and then he found Tomorrowland, just as we said, through Small World After All. but even then the story continues to go on, and then he falls into Tomorrowland. He manages to build his jetpack, and we're introduced to.
Well,
Nick's,
technically that robot.
the robot helped him fixed it.
Fixed
Yeah,
it.
so
Like,
that would
whatever
work.
He was missing,
Right.
He got it to
Right,
work.
but my whole point is, all of that happens, and that's at least a good 15, 20 minutes of the movie,
Yeah.
of the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
before we even meet Casey, our main character.
Yeah.
And then she has to discover all of this over again. You know, so that's what we were saying is like, why didn't it just start off from Casey's point of view? Because then she ends up, being chased by Athena. And then she goes to the comic book store.
But then
they turn out to be robots.
but then we don't really have an understanding of the relationship between Frank and
But that's
Athena.
okay because that can be developed.
Well, and then
You know what I
it
mean?
kinda
That can be
Well, the
developed.
only thing is, like, I see why they put that in there because it's not more for. Well, it is for Frank's character, but I think it's more for the introduction of Athena because now we know that she's from the future, and she came. Like, I guess that would have been like the early 60s, late 50s or whatever.
But
Yeah,
I'm saying
I
and
mean,
then
all
she
these
came
would've
back
been-
and she recruited
Well,
her. And
honestly,
she's
I
still
think-
it would have been a better story of discovery if they didn't have that prologue because then that keeps you more in the dark.
I think the prologue would have worked best if they would have just cut it. Like I mean, I don't even understand why they had to go through the whole spiel of him like falling and
Right,
eventually
yeah.
like clipping on his jetpack.
You were laughing in the theater
I was-
the minute you saw that jetpack floating beside him,
was
which
just
is
like-
understandable.
I did like he was trying to swim to it.
yeah, right.
In-
I
in
mean,
mid-flight
I'm
and-
sorry. I'm sorry, but I mean, I don't care if you're some sort of like super genius young kid. Not many people have the wherewithal to think, oh, keep calm and like try and swim
Yeah,
my way to
exactly.
like. He would have been a bloody pancake on the ground. I'm sorry. Anyway, but it's a Disney movie and they can't have that
Can't
happen.
kill that kid.
They can't, especially if it's like the child version of one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think the prologue would have worked best if one, they didn't have all that like fake drama
Yeah.
of him getting to Tomorrowland. It would have been interesting if he just goes to that little, into that little room and he ends up in Tomorrowland and he just sees it and they just kind
Yeah, he accidentally gets into it.
he gets into it and they don't even show any of the stuff with the jetpack. Like, boom, there's Tomorrowland. And then Casey would have cut him off. I was like, hey, well, wait, why are you starting all the way back there?
Yeah.
And then instead of, and then they would have at least cut a little bit of time off because then you at least get to see Athena giving him the token. As long as you get that little bit just
Yeah.
to form that
I don't
connection.
think that would be necessary.
Yes,
No, I
no,
think
I
she
don't.
is. Well, she is necessary because she's the one that she's
Right.
the one that's.
But we've had
she kind of
movies
starts
of-
this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
she's the
But
first
you have
domino
to
to
introduce
fall.
But
her.
see, but that can be explained in dialogue, and they still do show her putting the pin on Casey's person.
Well, I
so
think it could have
you
gone
do
two ways.
still
Yeah.
you do still kind of introduce her
But
anyway.
then we would have just been like, well,
But-
who's this girl?
But,
and
but,
then,
but,
then
but that's where the dialogue can come through and explain that instead. We don't have to see this whole 15-minute prologue first. And then her and Frank's story can come out in other ways, like seeing the hologram on his walls and stuff like that. That's where you can start making the connection.
I think.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
that I think would have been much better because then it's more the story of discovery.
I think they could have gone two ways. Either they didn't have the prologue in there, and then it would have been, like you said, like a mystery. And then, like, when she finally meets Frank's character, then there kind of would have been a better backstory. Like with revealing everything that he knows this girl too, and because she does say you need to find this guy, you need to find Frank, and then she kind of like ditches her in front of his house.
Well, yeah.
Or you do the entire prologue because his story is interesting, but you only get clips of it. And
Right.
I was like, well, then tell the whole story. He went to Tomorrowland and then he lived there for quite some time and then they kicked him out. And I figured and I was like, well, that's actually a more interesting story, because he was all into it. He became friends with her. He didn't realize she was a robot because he clearly got feelings for her. And then after he found out, he kind of gave up because he felt like he was lied to. And then they kicked him out after he built this thing. So either I would have liked to have had more of that story and it more flushed out and seen more of it, because then when we finally see his character older, when they have to go find him, there's more emotion to it.
But the problem is,
But I
you
do like the
can't go
mystery
through-
of it,
But you
yeah.
can't go through all that and then establish a new
And then-
character.
yeah, I know.
And
It's
then
so
go
much.
and then have to rehash the story 20 minutes later.
It's almost like 2 movies, because then it's like, well, that movie sounds more interesting. You
Right,
know, instead
yeah.
of having this new character, it would have been like, that movie would have sounded more interesting.
Right.
And maybe less plot holes if they started from the beginning with just a movie about Frank's character as a kid and then moving it all the way up to him trying to get back.
Or instead of book ending, because the movie basically book ends, you know, how George Clooney's telling the story and then how the other girl tells the story. Why not intercut it just a little bit? Maybe not a whole lot, but they could have intercut it a little bit.
That's what I was about
You know?
to jump in and say. I think maybe if they would have skipped doing the prologue and maybe jumped to Casey's story right from the get-go, and then of course she would meet Frank, you know, George Clooney's character,
and then you
much
figure out
sooner.
his story.
Well, right, and then I think it would have been interesting if while they're, because obviously, you know, they butt heads, or you know, when they first meet and whatnot. I think it would have been interesting then if they could have intercut, so maybe like, I guess, flashbacks of George Clooney as a, you know, young kid, because then you would have that mystery of what's his relationship with Athena.
Yeah, I think that actually would have been more interesting to start with her and then making it up,
because
and
then they could have delved more into it.
Because
if
you're talking about
they're doing it in parts,
right? Because if you're talking about a 20 minute, you know, prologue opening, if they would have just, you know, reapplied that 20 minutes elsewhere, and you say like, oh, here's a 5-minute flashback, here's another 5 minutes. They could have done like 4 or 5-minute flashbacks and told the whole,
right,
done the whole
and
story.
they would have just.
And just like how you said, if they had cut out the whole drama of him even like falling into Tomorrowland and then the jetpack stuff, that saves them a good 10 minutes, you know, and then they could have developed that relationship even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, because there's, like I said, like, one of my parts was I liked his house, was like when they're like there's robots that are attacking his farmhouse, and he has all this like Inspector Gadget type things on his entire house that.
But my only
Yeah,
nitpick about that house though, he had the one where the robots run through and they just get sliced to bits immediately. Why didn't he just have that one all over his house? That was the most effective one.
Because he has
Resources.
lots of
I
it.
don't know.
Lots of resources.
But why?
But I liked his house, but I figured like they got trapped a little bit in like certain parts where like they would go down and they're like trapped in they're waiting for him to try and come through. I figured like that would have been a good part, like right there where they're trapped and they can't really go anywhere, and then, you know, maybe then she would start asking him like what's going on and how is this going, and that's where he kind of relays the message. Somewhere around that part of this is how I know about the pin and all this other things, and then tell his backstory.
Right. Yeah.
And then
Sure.
you know, and like he's like you said, like with quick cuts, like all that stuff that they filmed, just do quick cuts, but do the entire story. Instead of, like,
Right.
a little bit, and then it would just it would have been less messy, less plot holes.
Well, and then it builds up to the dramatic point.
When,
you
and,
know,
and also
to,
when
like,
they
he
finally
gets exiled. Yeah.
yeah,
like,
when he gets exiled, and
'cause
then
we never
when
even see that.
well,
Well,
yeah, well, it also
we-
just
they-
said like
yeah.
he was like 20, like when he got
Yeah.
exiled.
I mean, why
Right,
not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like,
we never see any of that.
The way I would have
So-
done is the first one would have been him meeting Athena, him getting the token, and then him just walking into Tomorrowland, like him discovering
Yeah.
Tomorrowland. That's the first one. Second one, he, I guess, is now
input into their society.
he's put in their society,
things.
and then you hear him make the comment is like, I'm gonna try and make you laugh, or one of these days I think I'm gonna make you laugh, like, or whatever. That's what I'm gonna do. And then at the end of the third one could have been him like building and putting together that the contraption that eventually gets him exiled. And then the fourth one is him getting exiled.
Well, it could also have been like. It also said it was a big deal that he found out that she wasn't real.
Well, right, and that would have been
that would have to be in there, and then still, I think it also would have helped showing that he was there for a long time.
Right.
He was actually there, other than just being like a 10-year-old. Like he was there for another 20
so then maybe
Right,
then maybe the third one, like if they like again,
It
then,
should have showed him kind of like how they do with like aging up the character. They probably should have done something like that, and then also showing that girl stayed the same. So,
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
and then,
exactly.
I really think that was imperative, because I think it would have gone over people's heads. I don't think people realized that.
Right.
And they probably should have done that, and then would have made more sense. And then when he finally runs back into Athena, that whole which was a great scene either way, where they're kind of like awkward with each other, and he's still angry with her and disappointed.
Oh yeah, no, that was
and they're
a
like
good
a
scene.
weird old like ex couple.
Yeah.
And she's just
pretty
sitting there
much.
in the middle of them, and they're both giving it would make sense. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
So my question is about and you kind of pose that question,
Yeah.
right? Like how long have those robots have just been there? Because if all the doors to Tomorrowland are shut,
Right.
how do those robots get there? How long have they been there?
And
You
like
know.
and I think we discussed before, we never find out who they're sent. Well, they mentioned that they were sent by Nyx, but his goal
For
was to
Athena.
take out Athena. But then when
he
Athena
meets back up with her,
then
he
he's
is
like,
acting like, oh, what
yeah.
have you been up
then
to?
it's like it's nothing. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, what? You were so determined to kill them,
'Cause
and now you're
like,
not.
it would have been made
Made no
more
sense.
sense because she said I had one more pin left, which she gives to the girl. So it would have made more because they kind of did with it, like, where did you get this pin at? Who gave it to you? When the comic book shop scene,
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe you should establish more that she has this last pin, and it's really imperative that they get it back because they don't want it to go to somebody. But they don't really.
Or
go
it should have
into
been
that.
more established why they sent robots onto Earth, like.
Or into the past,
or
or
in- or
whatever.
in- yeah,
they
however
didn't-
you
And that's the thing too. I don't really
Yeah.
even necessarily think it's in the past. Like I think Tomorrowland is just like when they say
I think
the
they
future,
mean like their vision of the future.
their vision of the
Yeah.
future,
but
I-
it's just
yeah,
existing concurrently.
concurrently, like in
Yeah.
a parallel universe or
Yeah,
dimension
that,
or
But
whatever.
that was like
But-
so confusing though.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But
Because I thought it was
right.
like it was
Right, but
they
it-
were going to the future,
Back to the Future.
something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Are those robots supposed to be like your guardians over Earth or something? Like,
Well,
like-
which ones?
well, that's what I'm saying. Like the
I mean,
comic
you
book
have
owners
the-
or the ones who were
Well,
looked
the-
like
the
government
comic book
officials
No,
Owners
they-
were like the government officials. They were just
in disguise.
they
or
were in
something.
disguise, waiting for anybody that
But
had
see,
Wait a
an
minute.
but-
in.
No, wait a minute. No, they were robots. The comic book store.
But
Yeah,
so
no,
were
yeah, yeah.
but so were the bad guys.
Right, they were right, and
Yeah.
I think that they were a part of like the comic played by Keegan Michael Key and the other woman
lady. Is the one who's supposed to be his wife.
I mean, yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, she had a familiar face. I just again don't
Yeah.
know her name. I will admit though, I do appreciate, despite all the other plot holes, they actually they show and explain why Casey was the only one that could like touch the pin and like see Tomorrowland.
Because she put her hair,
Her
she, like,
DNA, yeah.
into the pin, so only
Yeah.
she could see it.
I did appreciate that they at least did that much to
Yeah.
explain
I
that.
may have missed that part.
Because remember she like reaches into like the helmet or whatever, like got like some hair or something, and like imprinted Casey's
yeah, she
DNA into the
imprinted it on
pin.
her little like compact thing.
Yeah, and yeah.
So like when she told her dad to touch it, like
That's
he
why I
didn't,
didn't
see
yeah,
anything.
because only
Yeah.
she can.
And another thing too, why is it so the pin, when you touch the pin, you can only see Tomorrowland for
because
a fixed period
it's
of
a
time.
commercial.
It's a
Yeah.
commercial.
Remember,
okay.
they
Right.
did explain that
Right.
it was basically
Right,
a
a
commercial,
commercial.
but that does contradict the end though when they give all those pins to the new people, because then all those people appear.
Yeah,
in
how are
the
they all
field
getting
at
to?
once.
Unless
Exactly.
I
We
mean,
yeah,
don't know.
that,
We
that
don't
yeah,
know.
I
exactly.
think we haven't really discussed like the things that we really liked, especially like the scene in the comic book store.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just-
It was a fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun
Well,
scene.
I
and
mean,
it
it
was,
was.
nice, like
Well-
revealed that they were actually robots.
But-
Well,
I-
I just loved. I mean, it maybe wasn't like the scene itself,
I
but
did love Key's
Key-
like
yeah,
appearance
yeah.
with the. I like the
Key-
comedy aspect
Yeah.
of it.
Yes.
So I was like, this is pretty good.
but also just all of like the little nuggets in that store. I
Yeah.
mean, you had
all
and
the
then-
Star Wars stuff.
yeah,
so
well,
much Star
and it's so funny how we were talking about when we were talking about how Brad Bird was originally asked before J.J. Abrams to do Episode 7,
Yeah.
but he decided to do Tomorrowland instead. Then he has a scene with all this Star Wars memorabilia, and you had Han in the
Yeah.
carbonite, and you had the R2D2, and all of the different sounds and stuff. You also saw he had like a little Iron Giant figure
I
on
did
the
see
back
that, yeah.
on the back counter and stuff.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, they
all
had
the nods.
everything. They
Like-
had every single sci-fi movie, television reference in that entire store.
Yeah, I want to
funny.
go in because like I said, I think there's just a lot of references to his past movies. So but I didn't see anything from The Incredibles though. I want to go back. I
think
want to
there was
scrub
like
back through
one
and see.
toy. I think there was one toy in there I could see that looked like it was from The Incredibles.
Maybe Like,
there was like some superhero toy that almost looked like in the same like animation style.
I mean,
as
it's
The
a comic
Incredibles.
book
Right,
shop,
well,
so that
right,
could
right,
be
yeah.
about it. You
But
know?
the
Yeah,
funny thing
yeah.
is, though, is the majority of the stuff in there is going to be specific to either Brad Bird himself or to Disney.
Yeah.
And so I would actually that's actually
Which
one
is a pretty
scene-
broad spectrum.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it is.
But it's like you know, that's one. Those are the types of scenes where you want to go through and watch like frame by frame and scrub through and see how many little things they hid in
Yeah.
there. That's like a perfect thing for that.
Yeah.
And then of course at the end of the movie, the one line.
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
end of the movie.
The
We can
best
talk about
line
that.
was, you know, Athena's basically dying in his arms. He's about to use her as a bomb to destroy the device that's
Yeah,
putting
you
the
could-
apocalyptic
You
Yeah.
could the like
thoughts
the,
in their heads, and and she's just like you were never able to make. You want to
Make
know
me
why you were
laugh
never
or
able to make me
smile.
laugh? And he was like, yeah, sure. And she was just like, because you weren't that funny. It's like
And she
you
was
expect
like-
something deep and dramatic right there.
Yeah.
She's just like,
she was
stone
like
not that
face.
funny.
stone
Yeah.
face that everybody was laughing, and then
Yeah.
it's like, and then she dies. Then you're like, oh,
And
this
she
is so
dies,
good.
yeah.
But you're like,
Wow.
that was pretty good.
Yeah,
that was
no,
pretty
it
good.
was.
At
And-
least you did a good joke before you
Right,
left.
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
In fact, like his chemistry with both the two
Yeah.
girls was great.
I mean, yeah, I don't think any of the actors are to blame. Like they
No.
made
they
the
like
they
did solid
They
performances.
had a pretty good cast too. I
Yeah,
mean, you got
yeah.
George Clooney and Hugh Laurie
I mean,
in the
they
same movie.
they made the best of
material.
the
Yeah.
material, right?
Yes.
And I mean, it's not their fault that there are plot holes and inconsistencies.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
Again, it's another Disney movie off copying off of something that's part of their theme park.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's copying off a shitty part of Magic Kingdom.
yeah.
Like
Right.
Tomorrow World isn't that great to go to. It's boring, kind of, except
Right.
for Space Mountain. Now that's what they should have done with Space Mountain.
I was about to say,
It was-
Space Mountain wasn't even.
There
in
wasn't.
it.
Yeah.
There was no
Space
mention of
Mountain.
Space Mountain. I was like, the
Shame.
best part of going to Tomorrowland
And-
is Space Mountain.
Shame, Disney. Shame. You know.
I feel sorry for anybody who thought like this was their most anticipated movie because I don't think it's worth it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think most people will walk out again just not having really any true impression. Like no impression
Right.
will be left
Right.
by this movie. And again, it's worth one watch if you get it on Redbox or Netflix.
Right. Yeah. Just don't do what we did and go to the
Yeah.
theater.
But that's what you do when you have a movie podcast.
right.
You-
Exactly.
you gotta-
we do this for you.
You just hope that you sit through enough shit to eventually get to the good stuff.
Well, we saw two good movies previously.
Yeah, we did. well, I would
Well,
say.
except for you, but I mean,
I'm gonna debate.
but you
your
haven't
use
said,
of
but yeah, but
good.
you never said like it's not worth going to the movies to see.
I think I did for Mad Max.
For Mad Men,
I think I called it skippable.
I can't
You did.
remember.
You called it
I called it
skippable.
but not
skippable.
for Avengers.
Just because
It's
I enjoy
Avengers.
the Avengers characters,
Yeah.
so that I
Yeah.
thought it was still decently worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I say end it here before we get back on a Marvel
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Let's leave.
let's not get into another
go.
movie rant,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, but thank you guys for tuning in to our Tomorrowland review. If you want to let us know what you thought of Tomorrowland, please comment in the YouTube comments underneath. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. Like always, if you want to express your opinion with us, feel free to do so on those platforms. But thank you for tuning in, and I hope you'll stay tuned for our next episode, which would be our summer movie preview coming next week. So I hope you enjoy. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.